BassEdge Radio. You're listening to The Edge, everything bass fishing, coming to you worldwide from Megaware KeelGuard Studios.
Aaron, here we are back on the mic for the October 1, episode 361 BassEdge Radio podcast. Man, it's good to be back. Excited for another awesome show.
I am too. 361 episodes means you've heard me and yourself, Kurt, mention 361 times. It is presented all in part by Megaware KeelGuard. And, of course, put on the protection the pros pick. Megaware KeelGuard. You've got the Scuff Buster, the Skeg Guard, the Flex Step, the battery guards, all things Megaware belong on your personal watercraft. Be sure to check them out at KeelGuard.com. Kurt, I saw some interesting news. Looks like Mike Iaconelli qualifies for the elites.
Yeah, man. What a wild deal. You know, he comes out with the new show, My World, and, you know, he's been working on that project for many months, and finally got that going last month. And great little show. I'm not sure if you've picked up an episode. If not, I encourage everybody to watch it. Mike Iaconelli there with My World, talking about his world of bass fishing, but also experiencing other sports personalities' worlds, from bowling to NASCAR. Women's golfer is on there as well. So a lot of great stuff. But in the midst of all of that, it was like, well, where's Mike headed in his competitive career, right? I mean, he wasn't fishing MLF this year and really didn't fish any early competitive events. You know, he's not in the Elite Series. You know, he had left the Elite Series several years ago to compete solely with MLF. But, man, he jumped in the BASS Northern Opens, and just what a testament to badassness. Quite frankly. I mean, he goes into the Northern Opens and qualifies in you got to finish in the top 3 in any of the Opens divisions to fish the Elite Series, and finishes second place in the points, requalifies for the Bass Elite Series, and he's still fishing at MLF Toyota division this year as well up there in that Northern division. But I'd put $1 million that he's going to go back to the BASS Elite Series. So pretty interesting events there, obviously.
Yeah. And looks like perhaps the BBT Tour has came out with their top, I guess, so to speak, in the tent.
Yeah, after the pro circuit finalized and they sent out a press release, they had 5 Bass Pro Tour anglers that fished the pro circuit, which is, I guess, in the MLF, the second division down from their major tour, the Bass Pro Tour. And in that pro circuit, 5 of the guys that fished the Bass Pro Tour, Michael Neal, Skeet Reese, Justin Lucas, Cody Meyer, Mike McClellan, they all kind of re-qualified or double qualified, you might say, to fish the BBT again in 2022. But 5 new anglers will be a part of that BBT in 2022. And those were the pro circuit guys that finished in the top 10 along with those other BBT guys. But Ryan Salzman, a guide down there at Guntersville, great fisherman from Alabama. Got a young Cole Floyd. We had him on the show several episodes back. So Cole Floyd, pops into the BBT. Ron Nelson, a great angler from up there in Michigan. Clavian Johns, the 4th qualifier through that pro circuit from the pro circuit division of Fish BBT. Not sure a whole lot about Clavian Johns. He's a rookie. Just haven't talked to him a whole lot. And then, of course, kind of right there in your backyard, Aaron, Jeremy Lawyer qualifies for that BBT. And he's, of course, one of those rock hole anglers up there around Table Rock and Grand Lake and Lake of the Ozarks, all there in that Missouri country, right?
Well, exciting stuff. And what I'm most excited about is, obviously, we talk about finishes and how to put fish in the boat. And that kind of leads us into our next segment.
And that's right, Aaron. We're going to go right into a tackle tip from ProtectTheHarvest.com. This episode's ProtectTheHarvest.com tackle tip with BASS Elite Series Angler of the Year, Seth Fighter.
Yeah, my best tackle tip for you, October, fall fishing up north. Fish want a big meal. My favorite way to catch large amounts up north is flipping a jig, and in the summertime I tend to fish a really, really compact jig. I'll trim my skirt right behind the hook and cut down my trailer, usually throwing a pretty finessey trailer. And once that first good cold snap sets in and up north, I like to really bulk up my jig. I'll leave a full skirt on there, throw a full big trailer on there, and bump my weight up a little bit too. I tend to flip a 3/4 ounce jig versus a half or a 5/8 like I do in the summer. Bulk my jig up, full skirt, big Z-Man helicross on the back, and I think bass are looking for a bigger meal, a big bluegill, and that's what I try to imitate, and I think it gets me some bigger bites to try it out this fall.
Awesome tip, Seth. Brought to you by ProtectTheHarvest.com.
First by land and now by sea. For years, Lucas Oil has been a staple in high-performance vehicles on both the road and track. Now, from the makers of Lucas Oil comes Lucas Marine products, specifically engineered for marine applications. Protect and lubricate your marine inboard, outboard, or high-performance boat with Lucas Marine Engine Oil or Lucas Synthetic-Based Oil. Learn more about the complete line of Lucas Oil and marine products. Visit lucasoil.com.
Nitro Performance Bass Boats. Get pro-level performance with the Nitro Z18, the official boat of Major League Fishing. The Z18, with its nimble handling and versatility, sports many of the features in the larger boats in the line, like a Guardian live well, a heavily insulated cooler, dual 8-foot rod storage, and our smooth and fast NVT hull. Every Nitro boat is laid out to do one thing very well: catch fish. Enormous front decks, up to 45 square feet on the Z21, allow maximum mobility when battling unruly bass, and feature low-profile gunnels for ease of skipping, pitching, flipping, or landing fish. Nitro Performance Bass Boats, pure fishing machines.
Kurt, we talk a lot about fishing and of having to make adjustments and, kind of dealing with curveballs and adjusting accordingly. We've had a little bit of that, not to stray too far into the woe is me or woe is us, but it's been a little technical challenge here in the old studio of BassEdge.
Yeah, sometimes we have to muster through these things. Technology, we rely on it so much, even to the point of out there on the water, right? I've got a good buddy of mine, really good angler, got on some fish earlier this year using the active target, and he had some power issues, which power is a major deal. I mean, we talked about that with Kurt from Power Pole, earlier this year, how important power is for boats and the charge system and all that stuff and yada, yada, yada. But we rely on this technology so much that after he lost his active target during the event, it was almost like he couldn't recover. It was like, how do I get this unit back on? Because if this unit isn't on, I'm not catching fish.
Power is also important for recording, Kurt. And thankfully, you had a mobile backup, I guess, if you will, fire up the generator or something. But anyway, we've been able to work through it. We'll salvage something. Quality might not be quite as up to par as
not our normal episode quality. That's right. But still, hopefully a great episode. We talked a little bit about the intro and, some great performances guys have had this year. And now we're into fall fishing and talking about how we catch more fish. And we're going to have an interview that talks about that coming up next. But Aaron, let's talk about that ourselves a little bit. I've been out here on Lake Amistad a good little bit over the last few weeks. And although water temperatures are still low 80s, I am seeing, that transition already occurring that we've talked about some in the September episodes. And Aaron, such a small little clue or observation can lead you to catching fish this time of year.
Yes, no doubt. And there's several factors that come into play, like what you talked about with, the days are getting shorter, water temperatures cooling down, turnover, being at the early or the beginning, I should say, of October. I'm more excited probably as we get closer into that November timeframe.
Yes.
Would be my opinion. I'm sure it sounds like you agree, but, I think it's time, Kurt, to really focus on those horizontal presentations. You got the schooling fish factor. And when I say horizontal presentations, I have been known, depending on where I'm at, to flip a jig on the docks and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think the key is going to be targeting kind of the gizzard shad, the threadfin, the bluegill, the brim. That's really where I'm leaning towards. How about yourself?
Absolutely. I'm definitely leaning toward that. And finding that bait is so important. And you hear schooling fish, and sometimes, we we hear that terminology and we think, well, you just have to luck on a school of fish, or you just have to be in the right section of the lake, or just happen to be in the right cove when they start boiling the water and busting bait and that kind of stuff. And Aaron, going back to that technology aspect, you really don't need all of those intrinsic factors anymore. Certainly they still help, being observant, looking for dimples on the surface, those things will lead you to success as well. But, these fish, in my opinion, are already in that schooling process. They're just not easily accessible right now because they're over what I like to call la la land, right? I mean, they're not in the backs of the creeks. They're not pushing things against hard cover and kind of getting corralled, as you might say, in easy targetable areas. They're out there over open water, sometimes over, 30, 40, 60, 80, 120 feet, depending on what style of lake that you're fishing. But these fish are already starting to school and really, getting on chasing bait. The interesting part about this time of year is that they're just not all doing it together, like in the spawn, when they're all spawning. We know they're all up shadow. Or later in the fall, there's a lot more fish, doing the same thing. Right now, you have isolated pockets of areas where there is some bait fish around, and we need to make sure that we're utilizing our electronics. And what I'm seeing here on Lake Amistad is when you get around that bait, there are so many ways to target it, whether it's a small little swim bait or a jerk bait, or getting them to school on the surface by using a topwater and then attacking that. But this schooling activity is really already starting to take place, in my opinion, all over the country. It's just very difficult to find because they're not in obvious areas. Yeah. They're out there in la la land. So I wanted to just throw that little tidbit out there for BassEdge listeners and let them know that you can still have a feast in fall fishing right now. And even though it's still early in the south and, things are still warm, like I said, water temperature is still 80 degrees down here at Amistad, but things are starting to cool in some of the northern parts of the country. And you'll see that continue to progress down through.
Well, and Kurt, you bring up a good point as far as they're not all doing it together or they're scattered, right? I think that has a lot to do with because the oxygen levels right now, you've got a lot of water that's mixing, right? You have that warm water, that really hot water, and then you've got, if the turnover is happening, you've got that water that's mixing. So I do think that has a reason. I remember still to this day the Pond Boss coming on and talking about that very oxygen stratification. That is why that the fish are scattered, because the bait fish are going to go right where it's comfortable as well. So guess what? The bass are going to follow them, and a lot of times that schooling action that you speak of, it's not necessarily happening on the surface, but hey, it could be 4, 5, 10 feet under the water.
That's
right.
Right.
You're talking about, and so that's where the electronics come into play. Very, very good
absolutely.
points.
Absolutely. Still some good fishing out there to be had. It takes maybe sometimes a little bit of luck this time of year, or persistency, being very persistent in a particular technique or way that you feel like you get a bite and you can capitalize on maybe a few more bites. But, still a lot of fun and things to learn out there in the bass fishing world this time of year. So talking about things to learn, Aaron, we're going to move into our angler spotlight coming up next. We're going to learn some more about fall fishing, learn some more about what's making the top anglers in the world successful in today's sport. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to be right back with another great interview on BassEdge Radio.
This is MLF Pro Circuit Angler, Kyle Gillett.
I'm Pro Angler Bill McDonald.
This is MLF BPT Pro Jacob Wheeler.
This is MLF Pro Circuit Angler Kyle Cordiano.
I am Pro Angler Cole Floyd. Stay tuned for more BassEdge Radio.
You know the importance of protecting your investments, so why use anything else other than the original and toughest DIY keel protector for your boat, Megaware KeelGuard. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our exclusive contoured edge and patented technology. Megaware KeelGuard keel protectors are made tough and made to stick. Their do-it-yourself installation takes less than an hour, providing the longest-lasting, most dependable keel protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Developed specifically by boat builders offering the best keel protection in the industry. Also from Megaware KeelGuard, Skeg Guard, Flex Step Pro, and Pontoon Guard. So give your boat the performance edge. Put on the protection the pros pick. Megaware KeelGuard.
Aaron, today's Lucas Oil Angler Spotlight is special, as they all are. But when you have an exceptionally close industry relationship with anglers, it makes it that much more fun here on BassEdge Radio. Today, we chat with 2021 BASS Elite Series champion and 2022 Bassmaster Classic qualifier. He's got a new swim jig out on the market in 2021 as well. Lots of interesting things to chat about. Aaron, help me welcome back to the show BASS Elite Series angler Bryan Schmitt. Bryan, thanks for taking time to be with us on BassEdge Radio.
Hey guys, Aaron, Kurt, I appreciate it big time, man. I've been on with you before. Super excited that you're having me back. Can't wait to dive into everything.
Well, like you said, Bryan, certainly you are no stranger to BassEdge, and that means you have earned that position, I should say. And what a year, Bryan. Of course, you know, Kurt will try and claim that BassEdge has a lot of success or the reasons for your success, but regardless, you know, you being on here several times certainly has raised our bass fishing IQ. And, you know, a BASS Elite win on Lake Champlain, an MLF Toyota Series win on Lake Toho, a Bassmaster Classic qualification, and a top 10 in prize money over the entire sport with $215,000 in winnings. How, in your mind, has this season stacked up to other seasons that you've had success in?
Well, by far, it's the best for me on a national level. You know, it was like one of those deals, guys, where like I really needed to have a strong season. And, you know, when you need something, does it always happen? No. And for it to happen and the way it happened, it floored me, man. And I'm still soaking it in because, you know, that's the crazy thing about this sport. Like, you're only as good as your last tournament. Once that tournament's done, it's over, you know. It's like on to the next one. So almost getting ready to slow down and be able to soak it in a little bit.
There you go, Bryan. I want to just clarify what Aaron's talking about there before he started into that question that he asked you. You know, we've got a great record, as Aaron was talking about, and I don't take claim to these all the time, as Aaron might like to. But dude, when we have people on the show, they catch the frickin' fish. And maybe that's why we're talking to the anglers we talk to, is because they are on a path of success. And it kind of manifests that after, you know, each time. I think Wheeler won a BBT this year after we talked to him. We had Justin Hamner on. I think he had a top 10 after we talked to him. A lot of great stuff happens with guys that come on the show.
Put it like this, Bryan. If we were as good, or if I was as good of, you know, fishing as what we were of picking anglers that's going to do well in future tournaments, I'd be interviewing myself. But instead, I'm on this side of the microphone. So there you go.
Well, there's two sides to everything. So I know when I get asked to do the show with you guys, things are going good as well. So, you know, I'm going to go out and request that we do this before every elite event next year.
Right. There you go. That would be the for sure ticket to success, Bryan, you know, outside of all your great fishing skills. But talking about success, let's dive into that a little bit, man. You know, you hear success breeds success. And it seems like, you know, you talk about momentum and all these kind of things, but in all aspects of sport, you know, basketball, baseball, I don't care what it is, you get on a good hitting streak or you know, you get hot from behind the 3-point line. A lot of these things, you kind of see that confidence and that success breeding more success. What do you feel like is the key to an angler driving into that successful groove and being able to meet and achieve goals?
I've reflected on my fishing career. You know, I'm kind of strange. I'm like a student of this sport, and like I don't need to write anything down. I can remember everything that's ever happened in fishing. It's just a crazy thing. It's like I'm possessive about it. But for me personally, what I've noticed is I'm almost like I'm trying to prove something. And I don't know if I'm proving it to myself or other people, but it's when I have a chip on my shoulder, per se. It's just something has happened over the years when that situation arises. Man, I have been blessed to pull through when that's on the table. And coming into this year, guys, like, you know, the Bassmaster Elite, you know, you're going to go home if you don't catch them. And they didn't cut any anglers last year. coming into the season, I knew I needed to fish good to keep my position on the elite. And I don't know, man, it's like this extra drive, this extra gear. And sometimes, you know, like we talk about, when you need that to happen, when you're like, man, I need to catch them, it doesn't always happen. But for some reason it did. And then when success starts to roll, your confidence gets up. And then, man, you're almost just making these decisions that just seem to keep working.
Right.
It snowballs. And I've had it happen before on not a national level, on a Toyota Series Open kind of level. But I'm just blown away that it did.
Well, Bryan, let's explore some fishing techniques that trended for you in 2021 and really kind of put you over the edge or enabled you to have just really a fantastic year.
Yep, for sure. So a really big deal for me this year, guys, was just an old school rattle trap style bait. It's called a Ruco shad from Spro. It's just something that catches fish, man, and especially, you know, kicking off in Florida this year, that is a fish catching fool. And I was able to apply that in 2 tournaments back to back. And I got on a specific style of, you know, grass I was looking for. And this was just catching really big fish for me. You know, that was a big player for me earlier in the year. I even took that to Fort Loudon and Tellico Lakes and was able to catch some fish on that. And then, guys, you know, as simple as this sounds, a Nico rig was a big player going forward for me the second half of the year, man. I kind of kept it a little simple this year, and it seemed like when I got away from the simple, I kind of got a little too crazy with some baits and stuff and missed the ball. So the best thing for me was to simplify it, and that's what I did, to be honest with you.
Bryan, when you talk about simplifying techniques, obviously you got your lipless crankbait there and then your Nico rig. Is it a certain type of cover that you're constantly looking for? Obviously, you're not going to find the same trending cover in all the Elite Series events. They travel all over the country. So how have you been able to kind of dive into the availability of cover or things that you see out there in 3 days of practice on the Elite Series to then capitalize so well and be, you know, as consistent as you are?
So the biggest thing for me, guys, and this is something that we all probably need to work on, is realizing really quickly, whatever body of water you're on, what is the best available cover? What is it? Really quick, what is the best available cover? Is it a grass fishery? Is it, you know, a flooded up in the bushes fishery? Is it more of a rock, you know, highland rock fishery? You know, whatever that is, identifying that quickly, and then what would be the best technique for you to thoroughly fish that available cover. And that's what I was able to do when I did well. And it seemed like when I didn't do well, I was too spaced out. I had too many things on my mind. I wanted to run up here and fish a dam, and then I wanted to race down here and fish one stump, or, you know. So when you're fishing these events and you got 3 days of practice and you got, you know, 100 really good anglers, sometimes just simplify things, man. The most fish are usually going to live around the best cover, you know, the most predominant cover on the fishery. And we're not always able to figure that out. But when you do, and then you simplify it, hey, the live scope allows me to sample baits in practice. What I mean by that is, hey, I might see some fish sitting on this isolated clump of grass on my live scope. I could throw 3 or 4 baits at them, and wow, okay, they are really firing on their Ruco shad. I threw a chatterbait by them. I threw this by them. I threw that by them. They didn't really react, but man, they reacted to that. So then you start to get the bait dialed in. And those 2 baits I named, it just felt like fish wouldn't let that go by them. And that's a big confidence builder. You know, once you know that, you're like, man, I got the bait. I just got to get it around fish.
Another great testament to simplicity and how important that is in what we think sometimes is a sport that seems so freaking complex. You know, we got a boat full of rods, a boat full of lures, and just kind of being confident in what you're throwing. And then obviously, like you mentioned, with the technology these days and electronics, it really takes bait selection to another level as well. Last fall, the Elite Series ran into the fall, right, Bryan? And with the pandemic, all those kinds of things. And sometimes fall fishing is I'll say a lot of times fall fishing can be really tough on anglers. We're into October. We're kind of getting into that fall mix. You've got parts of the country that are still kind of late summer, just starting to turn to fall. And then, some places up in the mid-Atlantic, like where you're at, are starting to get some of those cooler nights and northern winds and those kinds of things that we see start to make that good change. From your Elite season experience last year and fishing all of those fall conditions, what are some lessons that you learned that you're now able to put into effect as you attack fall fishing moving as we currently speak, and how you're able to put more fish in the boat for yourself?
So, I take away this, exactly what you said there, leading me into this. So when you get into the fall, early fall, hey, it really hasn't set in cold, really hasn't turned over to this big fall feed, but you're in the early stages of it. The fish have seen everything. I mean, they have been fooled with all spring, summer. They're ready. They are so ready for this cool off. They're starting to think about bait. The biggest thing I could take away from what I experienced last year, take away Lake Fork, forget Lake Fork, and it even applied a little bit at Lake Fork, but your normal fisheries is scale down on everything. Your line size, your bait size, scale down. They're sometimes chasing or starting to get intrigued by little bait fish, and just scaling down seems to get you a few more bites, Then you start to develop a pattern. But just going into it real quick, hey, let's scale down. Let's go to a smaller top water. If we're on a spook deal, let's go to a little spook. If we're on a pop R deal, let's get even a smaller one. Spinner bait, smaller one, from a 3/8 to a quarter. Line size, everything. You're just going to get a few more bites. You're going to get your confidence going. And I think a lot of these fish will let's go by them. Like they're there, but they have just seen so many baits all summer long that you're just going to have to trick them a little bit better with a little bit smaller profile, and then you can start to dive into it.
Bryan, that's a great tip, man. I feel like we're all going to become better fall anglers from everything that we saw you and the rest of the Elite Series field kind of go through last year. Again, we just don't see a lot of that. You get a lot of hunting on the brain with outdoorsmen, but when you hit the lake in the fall, it's still a great time to get out there and fish, but you really don't get that wild feed until, like you're talking about, things get much cooler, and it feels like that's kind of a small time frame. So it's important to understand some of these tips and techniques that you guys can bring to the table. Obviously, it can be very challenging until those water temps, again, get much cooler. But let's power pole down. Let's take a quick break. We're going to talk some more fall fishing stages. Y'all stay tuned for more BassEdge Radio.
Patented in 2000, perfected over years of testing and real-world punishment, the Power Pole is the ultimate shallow water boat positioning tool. Swift. Power Pole deploys in seconds from anywhere in your boat. Virtually silent, Power Pole won't spook wary fish. Secure in strong current or gusting winds in up to 8 feet of water. Engineered to take it with a lifetime unconditional replacement guarantee on the spike. Power Pole. Swift, silent, secure. Visit PowerPole.com to find a dealer near you.
BassEdge Radio is presented in part by Mercury Marine. Go boldly, returning with BASS Elite Series angler Bryan Schmitt in the Lucas Oil Angler Spotlight. That's right, Lucas Oil high-performance marine products. Be sure to visit the BassEdge.com store for free shipping on all Lucas products. It works.
Bryan, let's continue to look more into fishing in October. What is the magic you're looking for in the fall when fishing is starting to change? You alluded to it a little bit before the break, that cooler water when things really kind of kick off. When do you see those changes occur when maybe it's more important, those of us that love bass fishing spend a little bit more time on the water because Bryan Schmitt knows it's about to go off?
So for me, and this is a local, I can relate this to my area of the country. When I see the first frost, that does something. It's truly a fall feed when that starts to happen. Like, they know in this area, hey, the winter's coming. But other fisheries in the south, wherever, hey, when we start to get those temperatures down in the 60s, there's a big change, man. The bait's really starting to gang up tight. It's really starting to make its way to where it wants to spend the fall. You know, one particular creek, for instance, you see the herrings and the birds lined up in there. You know, hey, man, the fall, it's going, you know. But it's really about that water temp. I've seen where you get into the time of year, well, hey, where I live right now, it is still blazing hot. I mean, we're in mid-September. We have water temps in the 83 to 85 range. The days are getting shorter, but the fish, they have no idea it falls around the corner. You know, like, it's still summertime. So I need the water temps. I need the water temps to get down. And a frost is a big thing around here that really gets it going.
Yeah, for sure, Brian. And of course, you know, to kind of throw out there, you know, obviously we're taping a little bit early in advance just because of everybody's schedule that's going on as we head right in here to October. But I know the main discussion has been on fall fishing and where we're going. Kind of backing up to what you had pointed out there with regards to looking at the water temperature. And, you know, I think two of the things that you said, which I appreciate, frost, right? If you're in those areas where you do see frost, that's kind of a main trigger for the bass. But then also in the south, temperatures getting into the 60s. So what I would like to know, what are the ways that you target these bass as the changing conditions do evolve?
Okay, so point blank period, when we get into that real fall feed and it's going on, to me, I feel like they are on bait fish. You know, I'm really imitating bait per se more than crayfish, more than anything else. So now I'm going to transition into a bigger spinner bait. I'm probably even going to transition into a bigger topwater bait. You know, for a fun trip, not a tournament, it's hard to beat an Alabama rig or a single swim bait. And I've noticed, you know, once this fall feed, this is just a little tidbit for everybody. Once you get into this true fall feed, and you might witness schools of largemouth pinning bait into, you know, some form of cover, if it's a seawall or if it's a good grass edge or something like that. You're seeing them blow up. You're seeing bait fish trying to get away from largemouth bass or spotted bass, you know, whatever you have there. And you see these little bait, you know, they're blowing up on 2-3 inch bait. Oh, I got to imitate the bait. You don't always have to imitate it. Sometimes throwing something in there that's just bigger than what they're so keyed in on actually triggers them. Hey, what's this one big bait fish swimming by me? And you get some bites. So once that's really going on and I'm out there, I'm trying to catch the biggest 5 fish there is, and I'm going to target bigger fish with a little bit bigger bait. Once that true fall feed's going on, you know, I'll put on a swim jig and I'll just put on a little bit bulkier trailer, a big Aruco shad, you know, 3/4 ounce kind of style, you know, just something that is just a little bit bigger, you know, like I said, early in the fall, real small, you know, they're finicky, man. But once that real fall deal's going on, I mean, they're following bait, they are eating. The days are getting shorter. The water temp's getting colder. They know they got to eat. They are biting somewhere. Now it's time to catch the 5 biggest, so put on a little bit bigger bait.
Brian, man, those are some great tips. I love how you dialed in from early fall to when that kind of in your area, that first frost, or maybe even farther south where they don't get a frost, but that water temperature gets down into those 60s and those fish really start to react. Man, those are some fantastic tips to help everybody with their fall fishing this year. Brian, let's dig deep into, we talked a little bit in the introduction, honestly, you know, all the way back when you first got on the interview today, talking about the swim jig you developed with Hayabusa. You know, a plethora of baits out there, right? You go to Tackle Warehouse or BassPro.com or whatever it is you like to do your shop. You go into your local tackle shop and you look at the swim jig wall, or you look at the square bill wall, or you look at the lipless crankbait wall, or whatever it is. There's such a myriad of potential quality lures that are on the market these days. What I'm really interested to dive into here with your signature series swim jig, the Little Schmitty from Hayabusa, what gives this bait the check mark? I mean, Aaron, I think we've both talked about this before. We had a show. If you haven't heard it, go back into the archives of Bass Edge. Just Google up Bryan Schmitt, Bass Edge Radio. We go into a deep segment about swim jig fishing. Brian's won. How many is it now, Brian? Have you won 6 Toyotas now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
6 Toyota events, a Bass Open, and an FLW Tour event, an Elite Series event. And the swim jig has been a big piece of a lot of Brian's success. So what is it exactly that makes this swim jig special?
So here's the deal. Guys that fish, everybody that's listening to this, you have a bait that you like. You know, you've been fishing a long time. You have a specific crankbait. Man, when the crankbait's going on, you have 100 of these crankbaits. You know, you don't care what so-and-so is using. You know that that's your crankbait. Or same with spinnerbait. There's guys that have a special spinnerbait, a special flipping bait. This is your swim jig. I consider myself pretty savvy with a swim jig. Caught a lot of fish with a swim jig. I've been able to do it everywhere I've gone that has the ingredients for swim jigging. And we designed this swim jig, and I say we, Kurt Dove was a big-time mastermind in putting this all together and getting it to where it needs to be. I was giving him feedback and stuff like that. But when I looked at the swim jig that I was using for years, what can I do to make it better? I needed a little bit better hook. I needed a little bit beefier hook. We got that on this swim jig. You know, what can I do with the eye? You know, all the baits, they have the same eyes, you know, if they're red or chartreuse, and they're stickers. You know, they're just a reflective sticker. We gave a bulging eye. It's a 3D eye. Sun and sunlight, any kind of light reflect off the eye at every angle. And that gives drawing power from a finesse approach, something that's not making a lot of vibration, something that's not obtrusive to fish. Hey, what's that shine over there? Hand-tied quality. You know, our skirts are hand-tied, the exact same strands, the exact same amount of mylar. You know, everything is on a Japanese quality level. You know, this swim jig is your best swim jig on steroids.
Your best swim jig on steroids. That's solid.
I'm not kidding there. The seal of approval, guys, is where I come from in this area, the Mid-Atlantic area. There is some long-time swim jig guys, and it's a different swim jigging around here. It's not your Alabama. It's your submerged, non-visible grass. You're throwing it out and reeling it slower. When guys around here that I know for a long time, they have one swim jig they've thrown for over a decade or more, when they're calling me up, I need more of the little Schmitty. That's when you know these guys locally have switched.
Yeah, that speaks volumes, Brian, because, you know, it reminds me of, you know, I put you in the same class with a swim jig as like Brett Height with what he's done with Evergreen on perfecting, you know, the jackhammer and the chatterbait category. It's just those added things that make the big difference. And obviously your resume, just like Brett's, you know, speaks volumes. And I mean, that's the only stamp of approval we need, is because the fish are doing the talking, and that's done with increasing the size of your bank account, tournament wins, high finishes, those type of things. So hats off to you. And, you know, speaking of tournament fishing, you still have the Toyota Championship to fish later in the month of October, but let's look ahead to the Elite Series for 2022. What event are you kind of already, say, have your eye on and that you're excited about, and why is that?
I'll tell you, Aaron and Kurt, point blank period, the Santee Cooper event. We're going there in March. It's going to be a slugfest, and that's not why I'm excited about that. It's not why I've checked it off. Kurt probably already knows where I'm going with this. Last year, 2020, we had a fall event there. Let's just say that I found what I would consider winning fish. There were some scenarios that happened. I'm not going to waste everybody's time with it, but I wasn't.
You could actually go to Bassmaster.com, right? There's a story about this.
You can. And that kind of this whole Santee Cooper discussion is the fuel that fired me for 2021. But we have a little revenge motive going for Santee. That is a phenomenal fishery. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be big ones everywhere. But I am extra motivated to do well there. So that is by far the biggest one that I am excited about, man. They're all going to be catch fest. They're all going to be really good events, but that's the one right there, man.
Yeah, they put together a great schedule. It's going to be fun to watch you guys get out there and kind of put this whole thing to work. And as every Elite Series season, there's always some great surprises, some fisheries we didn't expect to shine out, and some fisheries we expected to shine out that don't. So it's going to be fun to watch. Bryan, as always, a listener question segment brought to us by Nitro Performance Bass Boats. This question was sent through our BassEdge website by Brandon Profit. Brandon asked this question: with Florida's fall usually being late and drug out, how would you go about attacking southern lakes like the Kissimmee Chain or Harris Chain during the fall fishing?
That's a really, really good question, Brandon. I'm going to simplify it really, really easy for you. So let's do this, and I'm going to relate it to me, what I would do there, and it kind of gets back to around here, the Potomac, stuff like that. A lot of grass in Florida as well. Your summer's drawn out. The fall really hasn't turned. I'm going to look for moving water. I'm going to look for somewhere where it necks down. There's some kind of extra current flow, if that makes any sense. So like on a tidal fishery, I'm looking for a feeder creek that meets a major creek. In Florida, I'm going to go look for somewhere where there's some kind of inflow, some kind of extra inflow. If it's some kind of drainage pipe per se, just something that gets a little bit of flow. There's going to be some fish around there. They're waiting for the fall feed. They probably been there throughout the summer. Just start there, get some bites. Once you do that, okay, man, let's start looking for bait. And the easiest way to look for bait is to see birds. You know, you might not see the schooling going on yet. You might not see, birds per se nipping on the water and you see all this bait. The birds are there because they know something's going on there. There's some kind of food there. It might be happening at night. It might not be happening during the daytime, but the birds are going to lead you to the bait. Those are two big things I would look for.
Bryan, thanks for answering Brandon's question. And Brandon, certainly keep an eye on the birds and look for the moving water. Like Bryan had suggested, that is definitely going to get you at least in the area. And from there, good luck and hang on, because it's liable to get crazy in a hurry. But one thing that we do need from you, Brandon, and that is to simply log on to BassEdge.com, click the Claim Your Prize tab, fill out the information, and we will get the BassEdge gift sent directly to you.
And a reminder, BassEdge listeners, send those questions into the show via our website, BassEdge.com. Simply click the Ask the Pros tab or continue to fire on those questions. We always have a couple posts every month on our social media, whether it be Instagram or Facebook, asking you to put those questions out there. And Aaron, we've been getting a lot of great questions out there, and we'll continue to get as many as we can up here on the show.
Absolutely. I always get an appreciation, or have an appreciation, I should say, for the questions that come in, the level of questions. And I know that sometimes, just like Bryan's case, it provides a challenge for them to even kind of stop and think about what they're doing in their own arsenal and how they go about putting fish in the boat. But Bryan, once again, great to have you on the show. Great to have you back on the podcast. And like Kurt had mentioned, for those that have not heard your swim jig interview earlier on Bass Edge, make sure to go back and listen to that, because you truly are a master, and we all learn a lot from you. As we close the interview, any thoughts or anything you want to leave with Bass Edge Nation?
Yes, guys, get out there, get after the fish, tie on your confidence bait. The biggest thing right now is tie something on that you have confidence in, lock it in your hand, find a situation that applies for that technique. This deal that you really like, push it, take some time and really push it. Find the fish that you like right now and have fun.
Great tip, Bryan. Enjoyed catching up, man. Look forward to chatting with you again soon. Best of luck down there in Pickwick. I know $200,000 on the line. A grass fishery could be one of those ones that line up for Bryan Schmitt. So it'll be great, interesting to watch. You got the top Toyota anglers out there from 2021. And again, we'll continue following on that 2022 BAS Elite Series schedule. Hopefully you get that revenge down there in Santee, right?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, y'all hang in there. Bass Edge will return with Aaron and I in just a minute.
You know the importance of protecting your investments, so why use anything else other than the original and toughest DIY keel protector for your boat? Megaware KeelGuard. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our exclusive contoured edge and patented technology. Megaware KeelGuard keel protectors are made tough and made to stick. Their do-it-yourself installation takes less than an hour, providing the longest-lasting, most dependable keel protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Developed specifically by boat builders offering the best keel protection in the industry. Also from Megaware KeelGuard, Skeg Guard, Flex Step Pro, and Pontoon Guard. So give your boat the performance edge. Put on the protection the pros pick. Megaware KeelGuard. Be at home with nature with nature-inspired art, decor, and gifts by Wild Wings at wildwings.com. Explore art prints and canvas wraps of bass, trout, walleye, muskie, and more by acclaimed artists like Mark Cicino.
I primarily paint underwater scenes of game fish, and usually in a fishing situation, going after prey or going after a lure or a fly. I get asked sometimes whether I like fishing better or artwork. It would be tough to give either of them up. I can't really think of a good reason to give either up, so I'm going to stick with them.
Make your home, office, or cabin show off your passion for angling. Visit wildwings.com/BassEdge and sign up for an exclusive offer to BassEdge listeners of 10% off your next order. Give something special to your loved one and be at home with nature. Visit wildwings.com/BassEdge. That's wildwings.com/BassEdge to get 10% off your next order of nature-inspired art, decor, and gifts by Wild Wings.
The PowerPole Charge Marine Power Management Station is the most advanced system of its kind available on the market. It does the work of 3 devices, a traditional battery charger, a charge on the run, and an emergency start system, all in one compact unit. The Charge lets you run your boat's accessories the way you want to run them by allowing you to monitor and control your power usage through the PowerPole app. It automatically devotes power to the batteries that need it the most for maximum efficiency. The new Charge from PowerPole. Power where you need it, power how you need it, power when you need it.
Aaron, another fantastic interview. Really enjoy having Bryan on the show, even with the technical difficulties that we mentioned earlier in the show. We've strived through it and I think produced another quality knowledge session about bass fishing here on the podcast. And as always, want to highlight a couple of what I thought were really key points in Bryan's interview so that the listeners can really take this home. The first one actually comes from the listener question. And that was current. I think in the fall, current-driven oxygenation is so critical. We talked about that in our, you mentioned the Pond Boss even before Bryan's interview. Bryan mentioned it, having that current situation or any kind of moving water really can play a great factor when this fall fishing is in this tough mode before, as Bryan mentioned, getting into that first frost where, fish really get fired up or water temperatures really getting down into the 60-ish degree mark and those fish really get fired up. So that was number one. But before you give me feedback on that one, I want to also mention the second tidbit I thought that really came through from this interview, and that was downsizing. Downsizing while the bite is still difficult, going to be able to get you some more feedback from where fish are located, what fish are doing. Bryan talked about downsizing his presentations to just really kind of capitalize on getting some bites when fall fishing can still be challenging, as we discussed during the interview.
Yeah, very good points, observations there. And just quickly, Bryan answering Brandon Proffitt's question. That whole current situation or scenario is relative, right, Kurt? I liked how he brought up about looking for a pipe, looking for a ditch, looking for something, right? Because not everything has a major river, right, that's running into it or a lock and dam system or tidal. But keep it to where that there's, even if it's wind current moving the water, right, that mixing up that oxygen, bringing more oxygen into the water. So very important there. The downsizing, there again, the guy has a resume that proves it. I am not going to argue you one bit. I'm going to be all ears. My antennas are up. I'm taking notes, and my God, I'm going to have some baits that are downsizing just to increase those bites, because we know, this time of year in the early parts, like we've been talking, getting those 5 bites a day can be a grind. So I thought Bryan did a great job.
Yeah, another great show, man. Thanks so much for putting this whole deal together, Aaron, and thanks to all the BassEdge listeners for just tuning in to another episode of BassEdge Radio. Man, really keep that feedback coming through those social media channels, through the website, BassEdge.com. Aaron, got to mention the apparel. Been wearing mine as of late, still, loving that T-shirt weather down here in South Texas. Going to be still in that mood probably until into November, likely for us down here in South Texas. So make sure you check out that apparel there on BassEdge.com. And of course, we can't go by without mentioning if you're going to log into the shop section of the website, check out Jay McNamara's book, Psychology of Exceptional Visioning, the revised edition. So those are all great products that we provide here to the listeners on BassEdge Radio, and hope you guys enjoy them.
Yeah, for sure. And I've got to mention, Kurt, I was a little skeptic on, the Richardson 112 hat, but I think he had me converted. But always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thanks for putting this together. And again, just to echo Kurt, appreciate all of BassEdge Nation joining us right here for another episode of BassEdge. Be sure to tune in October 15th for episode 362. For Kurt Dove and the rest of the BassEdge crew, I am Aaron Martin. So long, everybody.
The Edge is presented by Megaware KeelGuard. For more information on BassEdge or to shop at the BassEdge online store, visit BassEdge.com. And be sure to join Kurt Dove and Aaron Martin right here on another episode of The Edge. Brought to you in part by Nitro Boats, Lucas Oil, ProtectTheHarvest.com, Mercury Marine, PowerPole, and Transport Graphics.